This is the Capital Improvements Committee. It's Monday, November 21st. It's 9:03 a.m. And we are located both hybrid, online, and in the City Hall meeting room 203. These meetings are held annually in accordance with the Greenfield City Charter. They are not hearings, but they are working sessions, and there is not, as a result, any public comment. As you probably heard, this meeting is being recorded. And if anyone else is recording, could you please identify right now for me at this time that you are recording? Not hearing anyone. We will go ahead and get right into our agenda. First, we'll do a roll call and call to order. Member Jean Wall.
Here. And
Member Forgy.
Here.
And I'm Chair Parietti, and I am here. And we'll call to order at 9:04 a.m. And up first, we have a joint appearance from DPW and the Health Department. And I will let whomever, either Marlo or Jen, however you want to approach it, this is your time to talk to us and give us whatever information you want to share.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jen Hoffman. I'm the Health Director for the City of Greenfield, and Director Marlowe and myself are both going to be discussing the Portland Loo, or something like the Portland Loo, as we move ahead. And I sent a little blurb about the public health perspective on the Portland Loo, or something like it. With city growth, Greenfield is growing in businesses. Population is growing, people are moving from different states up to Greenfield, and there's a larger, younger population. Having a safe public restroom is not just for homeless people, even though that is a focus in our city, but it's also for everyday residents, the general population, parents with children, people who are disabled. It's having access to a safe, clean, public restroom. So the old way, we went with porta potties, and as everyone probably has heard, they were either destroyed, vandalized. The cost wound up going up due to having to clean it and getting emergency services to clean it. And taking care of needles and so on and so forth, and other behaviors that might be deemed unacceptable. So now the Portland Loo has a coating over it that could prevent vandalism and destruction, and it's easier to clean. It's made out of stainless steel. It could be cleaned with green products. The actual there are slats on the bottom that maintain one's privacy when using a restroom, but it's very important for emergency personnel and the police to see if there's more than one person. If somebody is sick and is maybe on the floor in there, they're able to see that instead of a closed boxed structure. Within this, what we're hoping to have is a sharps container located within the loo. So it's not inconvenient for people who may be using IV needles to go outside with their needle and throw it out, or throw it in the toilet itself. There will be structures there inside. I will be working with our community partners to make sure that there is pickup. And since it's located near their facilities, it may be easier for them to go and do daily to every other day pickup of needles that may be on the floor or emptying the box itself. As for cleaning this structure, that's still in discussion. It may be under the Department of Public Works, but we're still just discussing how that will be. But all the cleaning supplies are located within the back of the loo, if we're using the loo. We have to just see through procurement. And cleaning supplies will be located on site. So cleaning it, you just use a hose and wipe it down with some material and it would be okay. As for the energy of this structure, there were three options. One was a standard unit, one was hybrid, and one was solar. Even though we're a green community, the solar option really is not a good option for New England weather. And that's because the solar panels would not be able to heat the toilet, which would be needed outside. And it would just be difficult to maintain. A hybrid unit may be an option, however, it would be more work on whoever's going to be maintaining the Portland loo by cleaning off the leaves and debris that accumulate. And the AC unit is probably more cost effective. And Director Warner will go into all those details. The loo is going to be located at the C&D lot on Chapman Davis Street behind the former Wilsons. Again, like I said, it's a semi-private structure. Director Director Warner mentioned that the pavement leading up to the loo will be level. So anyone who is in a wheelchair or needs handicap access will have access because it is ADA compliant. I did forget to mention that there is lighting that makes finding veins challenging, not impossible. Nothing's impossible, as we all know, but it can lower the use of IV drug use. But before I turn this over on the public health perspective to Director Warner, I just wanted to thank his department, especially Director Warner, for working with me on this. It's honestly a bigger component of his capital. I'm asking on a public health perspective and the social service needs of our community and keeping everything clean and safe for everybody in Greenfield. But I also wanted to thank Alan Twarg. He walked around with Marlo looking at many sites and doing measurements and really making this come together. I want to thank the electricians who went around and looked to see what would be the best option, as well as plumbing. So the Department of Public Works has been a really good friend and collaborator with the health department. And I just wanted to say thank you. I'm done, and I could turn over my presentation to Director Warner, if you don't have questions.
Thank you,
Director
Jennifer.
Hoffman. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I don't think I need to introduce myself. I think everybody knows me. But anyways, yes, early on, Jennifer approached me on this project because it's, you know, the loo is one thing, but the construction and how we get the construction done is another. The first thing I did was I had a few meetings and conversations with the mayor because last year I'd heard about all these locations where we wanted to locate this thing, but obviously it popped into my head, do we have water, sewer, and electrical available in all these sites? None of them, one of them, two of them. So there was 4 sites originally on my list. 2 of them I could not get utilities to. So the 2 that were left was the Chapman Davis lot, which would be the southeast corner. There's a kiosk there now. I think we got pictures in the packet somewhere along the way. So that particular spot has water, sewer, and electrical not readily available, but the easiest way to get all 3 of those utilities into this loop. So we had 2 sites that we could get utilities into, and the mayor and I had discussed, and we all felt that that would be the best place. It's flat. The ADA compliance was part of it. That's why I went out and looked. I wanted to make sure this thing would fit in a spot that we could make sure it's ADA compliant to get in and out. So I was also looking at the cost of the project. We ran up a couple of costs within the department, all contracted or the project in-house. And I decided since we could build a temporary fire station, we could handle a loose site quite easily. And it's going to be an in-house project if it gets approved and goes through the process. The DPW/central maintenance will be doing the project for a cost savings of about $30,000 to $40,000. So we came in at 181 on the cost estimate. There's a little bit of contingency in that. As you will hear, as I go through my capital, costs on some things have skyrocketed. We don't know what they're going to be next summer, so on and so forth. So even at the 181, there's some contingency built into that. So that's basically my spiel. I figured those questions may come up, but if it goes through the capital process and gets approved, the DPW will be teaming up with the health department to get it done.
Thank you. Thank you both. Member Wall, I see. Go ahead.
What's the other spot that it would be easy to put it at?
The other spot was easy, but I think if you visioned where it was at, and that was just outside of the parking garage, but it would have had to go up against the sidewalk on Bank Row. The elevation changes there. It would have hidden most of the park because it would have had to go along the walkway. It's fairly tall. And it also, if you walked up and down Bank Row, I took a walk up and down and I envisioned coming up Bank Row and this thing sitting on a mountain. Then you have the louver situation where you can see in the louvers. I think privacy would have been a problem. So those, I mean, they could go in there utility, it could go in there utility wise. And I reported to the mayor on all these locations of what my opinions were. And I think she took a ride too. So that's how we arrived at one of the two spots that was on the list. The energy park, I think was talked about a lot. We cannot get sewer to this in the energy park. And then I'm trying to think of the fourth place that we looked at. Oh, yes. And then the new pocket park on Miles Street. And again, I think that was the same thing up against the new wall in the middle of that park. It would really stick out like a sore thumb. I felt Chapman Davis was the best. It's not way off the beaten path. And it will fit in there in a flat area as far as visual.
Skate park. Great. Thank you.
And the other piece is it's far enough away from the skate park. It's up the opposite end. It may also be used obviously with skateboarding folks. So, and it's
So
just
you're saying the location would be closer to the Wilson's building, or should I
Yes.
say the Greenfields Market building? What are we calling it?
Yeah.
Does it have a new name? Thank you.
And,
Please,
and
Jean,
what,
go.
what about the ARPA funds? Wasn't there money allocated for this last year from the ARPA funds?
There was,
There is,
there is.
but there's more than, we wanted more than one in town.
So is this going to be the ARPA funded one?
No, this is the capital one.
Yes.
And where will the ARPA funded one go if we don't have it for sites and?
It could be one of, I mean, I'm speculating here, but my thought or my thinking is it could be one of our primarily used parks. So it could be Beacon, it could be, one of our
Island.
park, Green River Park,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Thank
So-
you.
I'm
Councilor
showing
Forgy,
on
go
the,
ahead.
yeah, I'm showing on the 5-year capital that it's a C. Liz has it listed for, I believe, capital stabilization. In the 5-year capital. Liz is showing it coming out of capital stabilization.
Thank you. Go ahead, Christine.
So I'm a little confused, Jean, and this follows on Jean's question, which was, did we not allocate funds last year for one Portland? Did we not authorize borrowing for one Portland Lou last year? Yeah, that's what I thought too. So this would be the second one.
It was not, last year it didn't go through.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, the council voted for it last year
I have last year's
I don't have.
in this book.
I don't have any of last year's stuff on me, but
I actually have last year's.
I was wondering if Christine did. There we
Okay,
thought it
so,
was
all
full.
right. So I could be wrong,
We
okay?
can certainly find that out before you have to take a vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that would be helpful, but then
Yeah.
I again, picking up on what Jean was saying, I thought we had it on the capital schedule and then it might have been removed from capital schedule because it was supposed to be, ARPA funds were supposed to be used to fund it. So that's kind of my recollection. I'm thinking that it was out there. It was on some schedule somewhere that I'm looking through all my schedules right now, trying to find it. And that I think the mayor, I don't want to misspeak, Mayor, but I think the mayor said that we could take it out of ARPA funds, so it did not make it into a borrowing request. Because this, I was very excited because when I saw this one come through, I thought, oh, this is great. We're now going to have two, and that's really going to work for our citizens, our downtown area, and everything else. But I'm kind of like, what happened to the first one? So,
My recollection is in last year's capital, and I'd have to go into my computer files, which I don't have on me right now or with me, is that we had them parceled out over the years, 3 of them, and one of them could be funded. And I think they were all in Jen's budget at the time.
Yes.
One of them could be funded by ARPA.
So,
But
right.
either way, your recollection as well, Counselor 4G, is also ringing a bell. So,
well, is there money still in ARPA funds to do it?
yes.
And are you working on a second one?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment,
Why not?
because I thought this was the only one that we had.
That was not-
I know, but I mean, that I could honestly, I can do, but I just didn't, no. So that was my fault, I'm sorry.
Confrontational, I'm just.
Not really, no.
No need for anyone to apologize. It sounds
Oh,
like we all need a little bit of clarification on what the status is of the one from FY23. And what we will do as this committee, we will make sure we not only have that status before we vote, but we will get a little bit more context, because Mayor, did you just comment that you thought there was room or plans for 3 total? Is that what you said?
That was my recollection, yes.
So we would want to have, before we took any vote from this committee, just a full picture of what's happening and what already was allocated. And I guess maybe the mayor kind of answered my question. I had a question about the bigger picture and the total, like, was there an assessment done when we first came across this product that says we should have X number total for a city our size, or, you know, whatever the criteria are that you would use to evaluate that? Was that done?
Not to my knowledge. I don't think we approached it quite like that.
That's fine.
When they first came into Capitol last year, we were having significant problems with Carson's cans, not Mr. Carson himself, but with the porta potties. And he was very adamantly stating that if something didn't change in terms of the way the cans themselves were being dealt with, he would be pulling all the cans.
Sure.
And
sure.
I think subsequently, that's pretty much what has happened. So
Yeah,
the need
yeah.
for more than one was somewhat apparent.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, the larger piece of it, and it may not be that you assess based on the size of the city. I don't know what the criteria are. The larger piece of this is that we have to take it kind of outside of capital, right? And talk about it from a human perspective and figure out what the right approach is. And so we will continue these discussions. We can't do it all today. I saw Director Hoffman's hand, and then I saw Chris Forgy, and we'll go in that order.
About other communities that have a product like this, Boston and Cambridge have 3 within that area. Portland, of course, San Francisco. I mean, these are much larger cities, obviously, but but they do have multiple. And when I reached out to Cambridge, they were very happy with having multiple, accessible sites to people. And it was a much better option for their health departments than regular porta potties. So it did work. If you break it up in little bits and pieces, it could be comparable.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, thank you. So on the heels of this conversation, I think it might be appropriate for the second loo to be put into this year's capital requests with the earmark that it's going to go from ARPA funds, so that the council can authorize the project, but the funding would be through ARPA. And that's like an appropriate place for it to be, so we don't lose it the next time going forward. So that would be my suggestion to Liz and the mayor, that this be modified to include two. One, obviously, is going to come through capital, and the other will come through ARPA. But at least it'll be on the schedule, and we won't lose the opportunity. We won't miss it for a whole year. Again, another budget cycle.
And I think the third one should be put on capital improvements for a later year too. I mean, I don't want to lose the third one.
Right. I think that's important, Jean. I think when we do our work as far as voting on each of the requests, we can make some recommendations there. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
More questions on this proposal from the committee, or anything anyone wants to add? Okay, great. Good discussion. Thank you, everyone, for your knowledge on this. So exciting to see something like this moving forward, because it's probably not very realistic to excavate under the town common and get the old bathrooms back. Is that?
Yeah, the stairs alone wouldn't meet today's code.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Necessarily advised in today's world.
Right. That was totally a joke. Yes.
I actually have family members that use that, and it was pretty scary going down in there, I'm told.
I can't even imagine. Yeah, I can't even imagine, because I've often wanted to organize a Halloween basement tour of the downtown buildings.
No, you don't. You do not want to go underneath the town hall. No.
You'll get your chance to visit City Hall.
They'll find skeletal remains. Yeah, that was a scary task to go down and dig up. You needed to take another person with you.
That's more like a Halloween event in the town hall basement, like Freddy Krueger type stuff,
Yes. Well, I'll let Christy Moore know we're considering adding another activity to her Halloween agenda. All right. Moving on. Do we have more from Director Hoffman? It looks like you're thinking you're done based on. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate your time and your.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vote.
All right, so Director Warner, what else do you have for us this morning?
Quite a bit.
Sure.
I was just wondering what the preference is, how we want to start. Do we want to go to the 5-year summary and go down the list there, starting with Public Works, or how we want to?
I think
this doesn't matter to me.
I think that is very logical, and I would also say you are going to know better than any of us how you would like to approach it, explaining it to us. But if that's what makes sense for you, I think that's a great place to start.
Okay, so we'll start with the general budget and Public Works. So I have a lot of the standard things at the top. Chapter 90 funds we list every year. It's grant. Not only has it not gone up in 13 years now, they actually lowered it by 10,000. It used to be 635. You'll see I got 625. And just a quick note as we get into everything, when we bid out the paving program last year, blacktop came in at $76 a ton in place. Low bid this year was 115 in place, and we have to pay fuel escalation, whatever the fuel costs are at the time. So if I got my math right, that's close to a 40% increase, which means technically 40% less roadway we're getting done. So I didn't mean to start out on such a down note. I think everybody knows, especially DPW, with the 10 divisions, materials, supplies, fuel and everything, it's definitely going to be a tough year coming up. And it was a very tough year putting capital together. I started back in July. I had to go in and adjust some numbers on the projects before they were due. Some of them we've done really well with in the past, and we had to give a good educated guess on a contingency. We reached out to a lot of firms, a lot of construction companies to put this together. So sidewalk replacement program, right now I have the usual 200,000 in there. And I want to state that we didn't use the 136 that was appropriated last year. We did run into some pretty severe staffing issues this summer. We averaged 10 to 11 short since last May. So the in-house projects really hurt using some of that money because we do some in-house and it wasn't enough to send a decent project out to be contracted. In other words, it wouldn't be worth our money to do that. So, I'm requesting the 200,000 to couple with the 136, give us 336 and put a good program out there, contracted so we get some good linear footage. But I also want to make note that we got 2 grants hanging out there right now, the MOD grant and also Safe Routes to School got submitted on Friday. So I didn't bring the numbers with me, but it's somewhere around $700,000-800,000 in the Safe Routes to School in the Abbott Street, Woodley area. Those 3 streets, the sidewalks, you're better off walking in the road. I should say that, but it's true. And also some modification and repairs to sidewalks in the area of Federal Street School. The Safe Routes to School has a certain footage around a school that you can apply for. And I would say that Athena, my department, and Dr. DeBarge are working together on that to get that app in on Friday. So it's there's many stakeholders in that grant, Mass DOT. I think we pulled it together pretty good, and there's quite a bit of money there. The MOD grant has numerous, and that's also a DOT grant. Some areas were picked out of the different summaries we have on sidewalks, especially ADA compliance. So there's a whole bunch of things in that grant throughout the city, such as intersections, crosswalk, detectable warning mats are missing in a lot of places. The rounded intersections don't meet code today. So we should be hearing on both these grants, I believe, in February or March.
Okay.
So we could really be doubling down on some sidewalk mileage, and it includes some very poor condition sidewalks that we've been trying to get to for years. So that pretty much summarizes the sidewalks. Do you want to ask questions per item or wait till we get to the end?
I think it's fine for you to go through all of them and we can save our questions.
Okay. So as I had said, a 40% increase in blacktop. I'm requesting the usual highway fund 200,000. And honestly, that just covers our increases if you take a look at the math that I described. So we'll be treading water and that's it, not gaining on our overall pavement program if I was appropriated these funds. Mill Street Bridge repairs, I think you recall last year I went out for the engineering. We got a quote in and do those repairs is approximately 250,000, excuse me. Bridges are a thing that if you put them off, the cost to repair them escalates drastically. In 4 or 5 years, this 250 could be $1.5–2 million, depending on the deteriorated abutments and what's going on with that bridge. Replace large area mower, Toro. This mower here is our really large mower, aerial mower. We call it the Toro. You'll see it, it's out there, it's red. This machine, we maintain approximately 110 acres per week of grass out of the Parks Department. Sometimes have to mow twice. But this large area mower covers all the facilities, the schools, some of our larger areas. This machine has definitely been pieced back together the last few years. We've just had some other priorities is why I pushed it up to this year. For this particular model, parts are getting a little bit harder to get. And we need a lot of them these days because it's really gone beyond its useful life cycle and capital vehicle. Legion Ave parking lot, mill and pave. As we recall last year, the discussions on the private piece that was in my capital, that's already been taken care of, handled. We no longer own that piece. The cost for this capital is strictly for what we have left that we own and maintain. And the price for that is 55,000. So if you were to swing through the lot, you'll see how the private piece has been paved and what ours needs to be done. I sent plenty of pictures along. It's in pretty bad shape. So replace truck 28. This isn't just any old 1 ton, we call it, small dump truck. It's a frontline salt truck. It maintains the public safety facilities during a snowstorm. It's a smaller truck with a sander on it. It gets in and out of the tight areas to keep everything cleaned out for them. And it maintains a lot of the city building and a few of the school areas that we can't get in with a large piece of equipment. This particular truck, it looks okay on some of the pictures I sent, but as most DPW vehicles start to fail, it's the frame and the drivetrain. We start to lose frames with always in the salt, so on and so forth. And replace road treatment truck 138. I had this on next year's capital when we pulled the treatment trucks out of the mothballs back in September, trying to get them ready. We found that the frame and the actual all-season sander body on this was in really poor condition. We patched the frame up. But we couldn't patch up the all-season body. We just recently purchased a slide-in sander. We can run this truck, but after this year, it's going to need a complete frame-off restoration or it has to get replaced. We're not sure if it's going to make it this season or not, so we could be short 1 salt truck next year. And I think that does it for general capital. Not that it's not enough, so.
Okay, questions, Jean or Chris? Jean, go ahead.
So I'll start with the trucks.
Yeah.
Can you lease them instead of buying them?
Some you can, some you can't. It's a better deal to buy them outright in some cases right now. We can definitely look into leasing. But I think as you look at my 5-year capital, this started about 13 years ago where we weren't able to buy vehicles. The previous administration.
I remember.
So I think the important thing is when you look at my 5-year capital, I usually have a nice pyramid, and that's the capital schedule you want to stay on. Well, everything is starting to catch up to us at once. It's going like this. You'll see I have a lot of vehicles in the next couple of years for millions of dollars. So, and again, this goes back 13, 14 years. It didn't just happen the last 2 or 3 years. So we can look into leasing. The last time I checked into a road treatment truck, it was better off to buy it outright. But we can certainly look into that.
And what about hybrid and all of that? Have you checked? I mean, have you run it by Carol to see?
Yes.
What the options are on that?
Yes. Well, there's another point on leasing. I would have to take all these capital vehicles and build them into my operating budgets.
Right, I know that.
Yearly. So, well, yeah, I'm preaching to the choir, the capital committee, right? So that would be another thing that budgets due January 14th. If we're to make some changes, that'd be some major increases to my operating budgets. So. And yes, I check with Carol all the time, especially smaller vehicles. At this point in time, these two trucks are all the vehicles that I'm asking for. There's not a hybrid option. We're talking heavy duty trucks, it's not mid duty trucks or whatever. So they're not an option yet.
Okay, I just wanted to check on that.
Yeah.
Let me see what other questions I have. Oh,
Chris, go ahead, Jean.
what's this SCOUR hole? On the bridge, it was SCOUR, that the abutment, the riprap has shifted and moved away from the abutment, creating an SCOUR hole.
Scour. It's scouring the actual concrete abutments. And
Okay,
it's starting to show rebar. It's scouring into it, digging away.
I just didn't know.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Another one of those DPW terms, right?
Yeah, and I'll learn, I'll be on it long enough to figure it all out.
There you go. Chris, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. You are let me see, this is on your highway fund, requesting 200,000 to supplement local aid chapter 90 funding. Can you tell us what that chapter 90 funding is, or is it the 625, or what is that chapter 90 funding? And you need the 200,000 to supplement it.
So in my forms, I directly described what we want to use the 200,000 for. There's a list of roads in there that we feel we can get done.
Right.
I did not bring the next year's regular 625,000 list with me. There's another list of roads which I can come up with.
So then then what you're saying is that the grant was 625,000.
Correct. Correct. This would be on, so what happened to us this year, if this may help put it together, our paving program was set up to come in at 625,000 and it come in at 825 and some change, because of the escalation in blacktop and so on and so forth. So next year's intent is to use the 625 coupled with the 200 so that we can still do the standard roads we do every year, as in the amount of roads, and keep up with our deteriorating schedule under the pavement management.
Okay.
And my forms do lay out on a lot of these projects exactly what we're using them for.
I just need a little more clarification this morning, if that's okay, Marlo. So I just want to get it clear in my mind. So the Chapter 90 fund grant is 625, and then your request is for 200,000 more. I get that. Now you mentioned something about sidewalk replacement program. You put in $200,000, but you also mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, that you have $136,000 left over from, or unused from last year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And will that, will you be able to use it? Will it carry forward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you have other questions, Chris?
No, I'm all set for right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Jean, go ahead.
Can we go back to your front page? I wanted to ask you about the water meters.
Yes.
About what percentage of those have been done and tell me about what's going on with them.
So water meters, as we all got slowed quite a lot from COVID, we couldn't go into homes. I think I stated that last year. We've made a really good headway on the meters since last year's capital. I forgot to get a number from Sam or Janina how many we got in, but we're nearing over half of them installed. We're nearing that.
Wow.
And the intent is, we don't want to come to the end of our funding either. We're going to order in what we need for the rest of the capital and then work on them as we go. So we had that going on. And again, we had such short staffing. It was tough to schedule, 10, 20, 30 meters a week, not knowing what the staffing levels were going to be. So it slowed a little bit this summer, but we stayed on as many as we could. And I can get that number if you'd like it.
I just was curious about how it was all going.
It's going good. We have some customers that don't return the phone call or whatnot, but we'll deal with those as we go. But it's going along as best as we can right now with all the other projects that we have.
And so you bought a mower you ordered a mower last year that hasn't come and you need a second mower, is that correct?
So the mower did arrive about 3 weeks ago. We're waiting on the title, the bill of lading. That's an off-road mower that cuts down up to 2 or 3 inch trees in the roadside. This mower that I'm requesting is a finish mower. It takes care of all our athletic fields.
Got it. I understand the difference.
Yeah, okay.
And the inflow and infiltration, I see that you've still got money left on that. How is that going?
That's going well. We're finishing up a last piece of a contract for, I'm a little thrown off. I thought we were going to get this when we got the sewer, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Can that wait because I have an update on all that?
Oh, yeah.
That would be great. I'd really appreciate that.
Okay, that's fine.
Other questions, comments? All right, so we want to move on to.
I think central maintenance is next.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so central maintenance, you can see that quite a bit has been added to the 5-year capital since last year. And I think at the end of the day, really a lot of things, we need to keep up with some things on the old library as well as the new one opening possibly in June there. So the one thing that really stuck out at me, and I've worked real closely with George, is the roof is definitely failing on the old library. We need to protect what's there, obviously. We all need to have a roof over our heads, excuse the expression, but the roof, replacing the roof would help us maintain that building and not incur any future deterioration of that building once it's unoccupied, so to speak. So we did get a quote for $160,000 to replace the roof this year, on this year's capital. It's got a C in front of it. I think Liz, that means capital stabilization. And I wanted to speak to also, there's a set of back stairs at the PD. They're very long, they're very steep. If anybody saw the pictures I sent, the snow drifts in there. The police department needs access to that room down the bottom of the stairs in a hurry, frequently at times, for emergency response. And I can tell you, it's a real bear to keep them shoveled off and free of ice. It's almost a constant throughout the winter as you have melt during the day and they glaze over again at night when it refreezes. So I have a capital project here of $30,000 to put a roof over them stairs. So kind of like a lean-to would go the length of the stairs and cover the ramp at the bottom at the doorway. I think that would go a long ways maintenance-wise and of course, safety. So those are the 2 projects I have this year. You'll see that next year we have a few other old library projects, and I guess we'll cross that path when we get to them next year. So that's what I have for this year.
Great. Thank you. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so I was there when they decided that they were going to start putting together a central maintenance department. My question is central maintenance responsible for maintenance at the schools as well?
Yes and no. The custodians are on through the central maintenance budget are strictly city side. They have their own maintenance and custodial staff at the school department. When it comes to the actual infrastructure, heating, cooling, electrical, plumbing, so on and so forth, yes, we support the school system. We cover the labor. They generally, depending on what it is, covers the cost of parts and materials.
Okay, thank you.
Jean, do you have any questions? Okay. So that is central maintenance, and then do you have a piece of the recreation one too as well? Marlo, or is it just, was that it?
Most of them in the background, but no, not here.
Okay. That's fine. I can't, from some of the stuff on our 5-year summary, it's hard to tell where it begins and ends, but that makes sense. Okay. Anything else in your requests? Your capital requests?
Sewer and
He's
water.
got to do sewer and
I got
water.
sewer and water.
Doing water, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, we got to talk about clean water and dirty water. So
Let me find, I just got to get to the right spot here. Go ahead. You go ahead.
we'll
and I
do
will
the
find
dirty
my
water
way.
first and then with clean water.
Oh,
How's
here it
that?
is.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I'm good now. I didn't see it on the summary, but I just hadn't scrolled down far enough. Here we go.
So to answer Gene Wall's question, you'll see this year I had inflow and infiltration. I had $1 million in there. I've knocked it back to 300,000. So not a lot of cheers on this, but we finally got out of the drought a little bit. We were seeing some pretty serious rains in a hurry. In the past, when we get a 2.5 inch rainfall, that treatment plant would peg to 12, 14 million gallons coming in. It is now, we get 2.5 inches. We're down to around 7, under 7. I want to say that we're making great improvements under the first contract for lining the pipes and doing some in-house repairs. So we have the 500,000 sitting there. I'm trying to stay a year ahead of this because we're finishing up the contract under the $1 million. And then we're going to put out another contract this winter or this spring for more lining of manholes or structures and more pipes. As we trudge through the original Wright Pierce report, it said we needed 5.4 million, I believe. We're finding that we're doing it cheaper, believe it or not. It's good to be able to say that in today's day and age. But with the in-house repairs that we got to has been a really big help also. So the question of I&I money still sitting there from the $1 million and then the 500 from last year, I think it's important that we get these contracts out before May or June. So we'll put another contract out this winter, and that was the plan. So I hope that helps. And the good news is I'm asking for 300,000 because I think we're really going to start slowing this down in my heart of hearts, the way things are going. And maybe we don't need that million looking forward. That's the goal. So that pretty much covers the I&I, and I hope that answered your question on.
I didn't see these other water and sewer because they were at the back, not with your report. And I'm used to having you be, I mean, it's not you didn't organize the book. So thank you for.
You're welcome. So replace dump truck number 37. This is in the sewer department. It'll come out of retained earnings. As we all know, retained earnings is our, I guess, capital stabilization in the enterprise funds, water and sewer. We call it retained earnings. So the dump truck will come out of our savings account, so to speak, on this. There's no borrowing on this dump truck. I sent pictures along last year. I eliminated truck 35. This was the twin to that truck back in 96, 97. Well beyond its life cycle and unable to get parts for it. And just a minute on retained earnings. So when I returned 4.5 years ago, retained earnings had no money in it, zero. One of my goals was we got to have some cash in the bank in water and sewer, because one emergency alone, $1 million would go up in a flash, one serious emergency. So I don't have the exact numbers with me, but we're sitting at 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 in both those accounts. It's very satisfying to me that we've been able to do that. I had a 5-year plan on it. We did it in less than 4. Yeah, I guess I'm patting myself on the back, but it's about the community too and what we need for money.
That's good. No, and it's very helpful to have the perspective and for you to point these things out in case, like this is only my second time going through this type of information and these decisions and these requests. So it is for me really helpful to have that perspective on what you're doing over time. So thank you.
Yeah, it is very nice to say that we have cash in the bank to make a purchase for these things. So,
Exactly. Yes.
So there's one other project you'll see that popped up that we recently went to council with. There's a dewatering project for $3,585,000. As most of us know, it went through city council, had the first reading, second reading, and approval. Well, there was a little fly in the ointment, if you will, after that vote. Bond council rejected it. And they rejected it because of the wording of the order. So Liz, I thought Liz was going to be here today, but I might be able to cover the explanation on that. So we have to send it back out to council floor. We have to rescind the original digester appropriation. And then we have to start a new appropriation for the dewatering project. Kind of have to go through it all over again. I apologize for taking everyone's time and the council's time for that, but that's what we have bond counsel for. Keep us out of trouble, I guess. So
it's more procedural in terms of this than it is actually looking for a new appropriation. We already are.
Correct. I'm right. I'm still sticking with the same project request, same amount. It's just a matter of wording. And Liz said that she was going to get the order out this week or early next week to get the ball rolling for December and January on this, so we can get going on it. So.
And Chris, it looks like you're nodding your head, so it looks like you're familiar with this already.
Yes, it is. The first piece that hit everything that hit council floor and they voted on and everything else was based on the premise that it just could be handled that particular way. And so bond counsel has come back and said, nope, you can't do it. You got to rescind and then you got to vote again. So that's procedural.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
May I ask one question about that project? It'll use a huge amount of electricity, right, to take all the water out?
I've already talked with Carol on that project a little bit. As you know, she's got a project going side by side with it, replacing some heating system things down there. This isn't a huge draw on electricity. The actual sludge press and conveyors. I can find out exactly. I know our plant can handle it. We're also receiving credits down the wastewater treatment plant from Millbrook.
Yeah.
I was nearing $180,000 a year in my operating down there to run the plant. And I&I has a lot to do with that. The more I&I we eliminate, the less them pumps are running, less them motors are running. So it all kind of gels together. But at the end of the day, we're not going to add electricity. We're going to still be subtracting, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Jean or Chris, any further comments, questions?
We can leave sewer behind.
Yes. Pun intended.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
All right, so water
On to clean water.
So we could end the morning by, talking about our nectar of life, the good water. Although I'll tell you, when the water leaves the plant, technically you can drink it, but I wouldn't. Just the thought of it is what I'm saying. So the water capital has a little twist or trick to it, and I want to start out by the first two lines. There's a line for 400,000 in the 5-year capital, and then I also I put everything in red for $727,484. So what does this all mean? Let's go to what I'm talking about at the 727. We just finished up dredging the Leiden Glen. I had an old account that I used up that had 91,000 in it towards the dredging. And the soundings and the engineering basically were off on how much material we had to pull out of that glen when we drained it. We literally took out just over a fifth of what we were told through radar soundings and whatnot. So we came into it, we ended up spending somewhere around 300,000. I don't have the exact figures, but the money's already been borrowed for the dredging. So I think most of us know that I try and repurpose money rather than coming for new cash. I try and repurpose everything I can. So since we borrowed all the money this year for the dredging, I will be putting an order in to repurpose the 727,484. And it will go towards two water main projects that I think are very important this coming year. One is the Nash's Mill addition of a water main, and the other one is Newell Pond Road needs a water main replacement. So what goes along with that is if you do the math, you take away, it's 1.2 million for the two water main projects. You do the 727 for even numbers in repurposing. I will need 400,000 more to do the 1.2 million in water mains next year. The good part is water is doing well, 400,000 out of retained earnings. We're not asking for any further borrowing for 1.2 millions. We want to take the 400,000 out of our savings account to go towards these two projects.
Borrowing?
It's under retained earnings.
I see it, but in the capital, it says it's borrowed, if I'm reading the 400 correctly.
Well, I requested retained earnings. I think I got Liz's latest one here. I'm not.
Well, and I may not have the latest.
Yeah.
Do you on your file? Do you have?
So anyways, a little about the two projects. So Newell Pond Road is a main that we've been wanting to replace. Now I'm starting to dig into some things that I really wanted to when I returned, but we didn't have much for money. In priorities, we've been doing some upgrades on the facilities, so on and so forth, things we need to do to keep our great water tasting good. So Newell Pond Road has very, very little pressure up there and I think I sent a picture of the pipe. It's highly tuberculated, we call it. It's an undersized main, and most of the water services to the homes need to be replaced from the main to the curb. It's all very old. To be honest, they would have to tap way out on Severance Street to get any pressure to fight a fire all the way down Newell Pond and Graves Road. So this is a very high priority project for me when it comes to fire and also good drinking water too. We can see what the pipe looked like. We're going to upgrade it to an 8-inch main, which is today's standard for plenty of flow and capacity. So Nash's Mill, this project we've been wanting to do for years. So we're all familiar with the meadows, I guess west of the Green River, north of Nash's Mill, the meadows area we call it. There's one water main that services that whole area out there, and it goes underneath the river, somewhere around 460 Leiden Road. It crosses the field, goes under the river, comes out near Nichols Drive, or not Nichols Drive, I'm sorry, out in near Lund Drive. So if that main was to ever fail, we have no water pressure, no water capacity to that whole neighborhood out there. So this is more about redundancy in our system. Our system has fail safes built in everywhere. Everything's got a grid. We shut a main off. We isolate it on a certain street. All the other streets around it are fed from other directions. We cannot do this out in the Meadows area. I thought there would have been a water main hung from the new Nash's Mill Bridge when it was installed. I went back in the records. It didn't get done because there wasn't enough money, and it would have been pennies on the dollar. So this project is going to run a new water main, which the stub has already been put in on Leiden Road, down Nash's Mill, across the bridge to the entrance to the swim area. The water main comes in from Coleraine Road, stops at the swim area. So that basically summarizes that project. I think from an emergency management standpoint, this project's a no-brainer. And I think when I returned 4.5 years, this thing drove me the craziest, knowing that needed to get done. So, but here we are.
Thank you. Jean or Chris, questions, comments? I want to just make sure I understood correctly, Marlo. So there was an opportunity when the bridge was reconstructed at the pool, the Nash's Mill Bridge, to have done this differently for the water main. And it wasn't done at that time because of the funding issue. Is that what you just
Yes.
said?
Yeah, that was just to hang the water main for
Yeah.
us to future hookup, hang the water main from the bridge. The bridge was designed with what we call knockouts in the abutments. It was designed to knock out. It sounds real simple, but it's a little involved. And then to hang the water main, insulated water main from the side of the bridge. It was all designed and built to do so, but it didn't get done.
Yeah, sometime, well, I don't recall what was going on at the time, but it is, hindsight's always 2020, but it does seem like a missed opportunity to have done it that way. That's really.
It was a TIP TPO project like Wisdom Way and whatnot.
Yeah.
So with the contractor already there and building the bridge, it would have been pretty cheap money in my opinion. But,
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
There was one other project, Millbrook Well #2 rehab. We got 3 wells at Millbrook and they're basically, they get.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Okay.
No, that's okay. I forgot about it. I was so excited about water mains. So you'll see this every 3rd to 4th year on one of our wells. And eventually we'll have to do a complete new well up there, replace them all together. But it's approximately $45,000 to go through and redo the pumps, rebuild them, rebuild the motors. The last couple of times we've done this, I've replaced the motors. We talk about electricity. Some of those motors go back to the 70s. Not very efficient. So we've replaced them in previous capital projects on that. So I think that fills it in. You'll see that my water and my sewer are really, I usually have 5 or 6 asks every year, but I want to talk about that just for a second, if I may.
Sure.
So the drought really affected some of our projects that we were appropriated last year. If everyone's looking at the appropriations not being used, we couldn't shut down Millbrook wells. We needed Millbrook wells in the Green River to keep us going through the drought. And both them facilities struggled with the dredging going on. So we couldn't shut down Millbrook wells to put the new pH system in. That would not have worked. And the Oak Hill actuators and controls, that's a transfer of our water from the Green River and the Glen. We couldn't shut that down at any time. And we didn't want to take a chance of something going wrong where it was going to be down for days. So those projects will be happening this year. So I kind of pushed a few things out in water and sewer till next year, some of the smaller cost projects, because we're going to have plenty on our plate coming up in the summer that are already there. And we're working on them throughout the winter to get them going.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Chris, go ahead.
Can I just go back to central maintenance? Is that allowed?
Of course. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to talk about the roof for the old library, if I could. Like on a scale of 1 to 5, how bad is this roof? I mean, 5 being the worst or whatever.
When I had the discussion with George and we were looking at this, he's like, yeah, it's 3.5, but it's about to become 4.5 or 5. I mean, they keep calling in a company to patch the leaks that are happening. And the membrane is basically shot on top of that roof. It's a membrane.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so then I guess my next question is for the mayor. What is our intention with that building? Are we going to sell it or are we going to keep it? And if we keep it, well, either way, are there responsibilities placed on us from the Historic Commission because this building is on the historic register?
What is the plan is the $64,000 question in some ways, because we have options there. It is important. I think the roof piece is very important for the overall health of the building, I guess is the best way of maintenance of the building. We replace the roof and will stop some of the other issues that are ongoing, such as water damage and so forth, both inside and elsewhere. And then the mold that goes along with that, if it's allowed to stay in there. So the roof is number one in terms of the replacement, in terms of the repair that needs to be done there. The rest of it, I think, will require some additional looking into. The plan could be one of two things. One is to sell it, but to get it to a place where it is more sellable. In other words, we went out to bid twice with RFPs. We had interest from people locally and not, but nobody returned anything in the way of in the way of an offer to purchase. And it was the consensus of myself and Laura. She was the one who attended all of the site visits with the different people, that the extent of the repairs of the building is what caused some people to not want to take that project on in late 20 and 21 when we were still in the pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. The appraisals came in at 450, well, within 25,000. One was 425, the other was 450, if I recall correctly. And with its highest and best use as office space. So, and my thinking was, give me an offer, based on what does need to happen, but it didn't happen. So rather than go out to bid, I felt like, well, let's pause a little bit on that and perhaps explore what the cost of some of the repairs would be, starting with the roof. We have a list of repairs, additional repairs with some of the costs are older. I think George is updating those costs for us probably as we speak. So the other option is for the city to potentially retain it and repair it over time. And as you know, we are in dire need of space for various offices. Moving certain offices, I'll use this as an example. Planning department and the building inspections department are on Sanderson Street. The economic development department is on Main Street and we pay rent. And Carol Collins is here in this building in an office that is suitable for her, but not great. So those are all three related departments, and maybe potentially even the health department could go in there in a single location that would be more accessible to the public. So that's a thought as well, but no decisions one way or the other have been made with regard to a specific plan. I was hoping to, have some better thinking on that come spring after I've gathered all the information. And then a third option, well, I'm forgetting to also mention that I asked planning and construction to kind of take this on as a little bit of a research project and make some recommendations to me about what to do. So there is that piece. But a third option would be to go back to one or two of the people that had expressed interest in the building, but didn't make an offer and say, give me your best offer.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Back to Marlo for a second. You said a membrane roof. You're talking about the stacks then?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we're talking about that part of the roof. We're not talking about the sort of slated part of the original roof to the house.
It's to my understanding when George looked at everything that the slate portion is in pretty good shape. And I think there's been a few slate repairs over the year. And as we know, over the years, slate lasts quite a long time. But it's to my understanding, it's all the membrane areas. I was just trying to pick my brain and look at the sheets I turned in.
Right. Flat roofs in New England make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Amy,
Yeah,
I forgot to,
go ahead. And then Jean.
I forgot to address Counselor Forgy's question about the historical piece of this. Clearly, anything done on the exterior of the building has to meet their approval. But overall repairs, not, you know, it's not unheard of for historical buildings to get repaired and brought back to life. So they do work with you. Margot Jones, the handicap accessibility of that building, particularly if it's used as a very public building as opposed to, say, an office building by somebody else, is probably one of the most glaring things that needs to be fixed. And Margot kind of took that on as a retirement project, I guess. And we do have a proposal well, part of it stemmed from wanting to take the bookmobile piece back off the building, and we really don't have any money to do that with. And we're not going to do it with a grant. So, but she did ask them to review a number of documents related to the library and the repairs. And that, when I say they, Mass Historical Commission, and to give us their thoughts on proceeding. And we don't have anything from them yet. That was just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
very much.
Jean, go ahead.
I believe that if you spend $160,000 on the roof of a $425,000 building, that will kick you into having to bring the whole thing up to code, won't it?
I am not sure on that question.
I think that's something that needs to be explored.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that came up also in planning and construction when we met with the mayor about this exact, what to do with the old library. So we would need to get some clarification on what the ADA says about those renovations and repairs and bringing the building up to full code.
I think you were thinking broader than the ADA though, were you not? Yeah, not just ADA, it would
You would
be
have to do
other,
everything.
like elevators and so forth. Not that there's nothing, to my knowledge, wrong with the elevator at this
Well,
point, but
it's not ADA compliant.
other than that, yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. Other questions, comments for Director Warner?
You've done a fantastic job of bringing us information. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yes, all of the work is so appreciated. The pictures, every document that you send us, thank you. And to hear, Marlo, a couple of times you say that, you know, putting in the work has paid off for us because we have to do less work, or, you know, we now have more in our contingency funds because we planned for it. Those things don't go unnoticed, and they're so, so appreciated and just huge for the city. So thank you for all of your efforts.
Yeah, well, thank you for the compliments. I have a great staff. You know, I always defer to my staff. You know, the engineering department, they're very hardworking. I have the best business office manager in the world anybody could want. And
we all agree with that.
I will take a run against anybody on that one. Yeah, she keeps me straight, just so everybody knows. She pointed me here today. You got to be there by 9. No, it's so yeah. I mean, I don't take much credit at all. You all know that. You got to have a good staff. But yeah, I will raise the white flag on the retained earnings. I'll take some credit for that one.
Absolutely, yes. And I think you got off easy with the no call on a snow day or delay last week. So let's hope that's how the whole winter goes. That would be great.
That's what's fun for the superintendent and I. If it doesn't happen, we still don't get more sleep. And we did treat the roads in the middle of the night. So yeah, So.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very
If
much.
anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me if there's anything in the
Thank you.
capital you need.
Along with-
And we may, as we get closer to our decision making, we may ask you for clarification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is it John Lund? Is he the only
Yes.
other one on the
Yeah.
schedule? Okay.
And he's not on till 11:15. I could certainly check with him, and if you want to keep going or take an hour break.
What's
He's
the,
here.
let's check. Is he here? Did you say?
No,
he's
I
there?
said Jean is here. She may not want to go anywhere for an hour.
Yeah, let's see if we can get John.
Okay,
to come
I'll
earlier.
I'll go
Thank you.
check with him. I know he had a meeting this morning with Danny, and that was earlier, so
We can bump Danny as far as I'm
I
concerned.
would think so. So we'll tell him to wrap it up. I mean, I'll go check.
Thanks for
with him.
checking.
Yeah.
I knew I should have added to my capital. I knew it. No.
We just allowed for Marlowe time, is what we did.
So when is the fire department? I'm sorry.
Oh, Caitlin did schedule that for you
There-
folks, that week in July, that week in December. I just don't remember if it was the first or second of December or that whole week in December, but
We never got a notification.
I don't think we have
well,
clarification of
I'll
when it
check
is
on
yet,
whether
but we'll
she
get
sent
that.
those out too.
We have an email about scheduling for Chief Strand and the fire department from Caitlin. I think she sent it late Friday with a few questions that we need to answer in order to get it scheduled. So if each of us could answer that for her today, we'll get it scheduled for the first week in December. I am going to step away for just a couple minutes and I'll be right back.
I will too.
I'll just sit here.
I can go work on my operating budgets. I don't know.
I am
Today was
going
really
to,
bad with numbers because I ran numbers all weekend, plugging in salaries and 5 budgets, and numbers aren't my thing today.
Marianne, I'm going to pause the recording right now and yes, and we'll, if someone could help me remember to put it
Okay.
back on, that would be great. Thank you. I'm resuming the
This meeting is
recording.
being recorded.
There we go. And I will give you just a couple seconds to say something about Arsenal being at the top of the table if you'd like.
It is incredible and unexpected and the most fun season I've had in a long time.
Here to that.
There you
I'm
go.
not, yeah, I'm wishing it was Manchester United, but it is, they're fun to watch.
You
this year,
guys are
for
getting
sure.
much better. So
Let's hope-
listen, thank you
Stabilize.
everyone
Yeah.
for coming to Amy's and my soccer coffee.
Now you know how to place all your bets.
That's right. But only in private pools that the public has absolutely nothing to do.
That's right.
This conversation did not happen.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not a betting person either. So this is your time, John, to speak to us about capital requests for GSET for
Thank you.
FY24.
Thank you. As you know, we took a little break last year because we knew we were going to be involved in some stuff that we already had taken care of. But we do need to continue to expand and upgrade the network and increase network resiliency. And we do need to address the fact that particularly in tech, most capital is a 2-part process because there are hardware items that it is mandatory to have a long-term service contract with them. And that is something we've done in the past, and it is something that is allowable under capital expenditures. And you see for this year, we're asking for a total of $85,000, $14,000 of which is the long-term service contract, and $71,000 of it is going not just to CPEs, not just in the past, we've only spent that money on what is essentially, you've all seen them, the little square radio receivers and the internal hardware in people's homes. Some of it will go to that, but we are at the point now where we need to begin installing what's called an MST, and it is a way to drive the radios that we currently have that also gives us the flexibility, because we're beginning the process, and it won't happen this year because it takes a while to do it. We're beginning the process of being able to drop an aerial fiber drop to homes and have symmetrical 2 gig up and down. So, and that is what we need to do. First of all, it's best for customers, but it's also something we need to do to qualify for the scalability requirements in ARPA for all the different things that we're doing. The radios are great. They're not going anywhere, but at a certain point, we will need to get beyond the 200 up and down maximum that the radios have. And that we think is happening even faster than we thought it would. And if we want to be prudent and not come with a big ask, which we do not want to do, we want to manage our debt service because we're several years away from having a pretty big drop, in our principal $5 million bond debt service. And we're trying to time things out so we don't ask too much of the town, because we totally understand you have a lot of other priorities too. But we do need to keep moving along until we get to the point where we can fund all of this out of retained earnings. And we will get there, but we're at the point we have 2,000 customers. We made a little money last year. We will again this year. As soon as we get to the drop in the principal debt service, we'll begin to be much more profitable. But in the meantime, we want to keep laying the groundwork to keep expanding the network out. And some of this will be for the new build up in the north. Some of it will be for upgrading in the core, which is where 80+% of our customers are anyway. So it's equipment that is, it's not just for equipment for reaching customers. It's to increase the resiliency and the capabilities of the network as well. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone would have.
Thank you. Questions, Councilor Forgy or Member Wall?
I just want to sign on.
I know. I will say I said before we started, we have begun after over a year to get some first answers back from Verizon. That is the holdup. We have to have licenses for the poles up north where we go. That is not a speedy process. But we have been at it. I know it doesn't look like it, but we've been working on it for over a year. And we're at the point now where some of the work that is involved in that, some of the make-ready work that they insist on doing themselves, has come back. And we should, they have to go do that work. And then we can start building out. So the first area we will work on is Berniston Road up to and through Severance to the local convergence point up on Severance Street. And then we will also do East Log Plain and Graves Avenues. And we'll cover quite a few people that way. And that'll be our jumping off point, for Log Plain Road, and to continue on through and meet up with coming up Leiden, which is something that we're planning. It's in the queue for them to review and approve it. So we do know that people up there want it. We would love to add new customers. We're still at 8 people, and now we have over 2,000 customers, and we think we can add more. So we think the north should bring us eventually about 400 to 600 customers.
I didn't hear Barton Road, Chris.
Yes, Barton Road is up there too. We will get to Barton Road.
I'm between Country Club and Country
Right,
Club
okay.
and Log Plain. So I'm in there, but I
Yeah.
have seen people working out in this end of town. So I know that it's coming. I do.
Yeah, we're working on it, but we have to, once we get the licenses, then we have to apply the Department of Transportation, which then has to schedule us in. We've done our initial 25% review with them. You guys know how this works from a lot of the other public stuff. They're also very nice and helpful people, but not speed demons. So we're at the point where a lot of our progress depends on paperwork back from other people we've done. Our part of it is done, and we're trying to be judicious and not over poking people and saying, come on, because that can be counterproductive.
I have a question. I
Sure.
want to make sure, John, that I'm understanding. It sounds like what you are describing is that when we get further out of like the city center, you have to use different technology to get to the homes than what you're using, like at my house on Madison Circle. Am I understanding the basics?
Pretty much, yeah. What we
Okay.
need to do is in any new build and in upgrading old builds, we need to introduce the flexibility that will allow us to reach people with a direct fiber drop.
That's
And we
what I
need to do
heard.
that. We
Okay.
need to do that for a couple of reasons. Without getting too technical, there's a
Yeah.
certain way we power the radios now. And it was really always the plan that we would introduce a piece of equipment that would allow us to drive both a radio and an aerial drop, or either or, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
Doing it now and doing it when we can do the work means we will do it for literally 80% less than it would cost for other people to do it.
Sure.
It's just, we have a small outside plant group, but they really know what they're doing. And our chief technology officer is a phenomenal engineer. A lot of what gets done is really innovative, and it's behind the scenes, and it should stay there because nobody else should care about it. But
Yeah.
it is really great work, and the ability to run both in any given area. I don't know of any other municipality that has the ability to do that.
Well,
And
it's
what we're-
interesting. That's kind of why I was asking the question I did not understand until now that you were going to have two different options for
Right.
connecting, and that's
Right.
kind of cool.
It is, and it, like I said, it will take some time for us to bring. It's called anything that isn't the radio coming to your house or the core here in the town hall is called the distribution layer. And that includes the main lines, but it also includes all the lines going to people's houses. The distribution layer is where all the money gets spent, because that's the part that has to be really robust, flexible. We have backups for everything. We have double redundancy in certain areas, and making sure that that portion of the network is really robust. So if, for example, God forbid, there's some terrible accident and we lose one entire loop, maybe we lose the ability to do radios at all, but we still have the ability to drop directly to people's homes. We have redundant closed circle paths. So we don't go down very much. TV is different because we depend on other people, but the internet, we're at 99.99% uptime. And because we invest a lot of time and money, we've said for years, we have about 30 seconds. And then we start getting our first calls if something goes down. And that's as true at 11 p.m. on Sunday night as it is
Doesn't
at
matter.
10 a.m. on a Tuesday. Right? We are here 24/7. There are people at GSET who for years have been taking the phone home with them and giving customer service after a full workday, because it's a pretty great group of people. But that's also what's required. We have competition. If you get mad, you can't buy your water from Deerfield because you don't like what's going on. You shouldn't, because Marlo does a good job. But people can walk away from us, so we have to provide good service. And adding to the resiliency and robustness of the network to give us the ability to keep up, we have to.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the explanation.
Sure.
Any other questions for GSET?
Have you spent all of the $1 million that?
We have not.
Okay.
We have not. We have, I believe it's next week, we get the final shipment. The supply chain has been terrible for us as it has been for everybody. It hasn't mattered as much for us because the licensing process is so long. But I'm glad we did order when we did. We did face some price increases, but we ordered early. It probably saved us $200,000 in locking in prices before everything went absolutely crazy. So once that's done and we have the final work done by Verizon, we will have all the equipment we need to start building up north. And it's less of a supply chain nightmare now. So we're back to, if you do approve this, we should be able to order the MSTs and other equipment and go back to, a couple of months lead time instead of 24 months lead time.
Thank you. Anything else for John? And the GSET app for iOS, I have to mention it so you can tell Fern.
Yeah, I know. We work with a partner company and Apple keeps saying, you have enough apps. We're not going to give you another one. And we say, but we're not them. It's long.
Yeah, I can only imagine the
Pretty much all the issues in internet and TV are legal and regulatory, all of them.
Yeah.
And a nightmare.
Yeah, pretty much.
Awesome. Well, thank you, John. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your flexibility in coming early. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks. Good to see you folks.
Okay, thank you.
See you. So I think that is the end of our agenda for today. How about a motion to adjourn? See you, John. Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, John.
So moved.
Second.
And a second, and I'm gonna guess we're unanimous in saying we are adjourned. And I will copy you all. I started a response to Caitlin about the scheduling, and we'll copy you all on that, and we'll get the rest of it scheduled.
Thank you.
Everyone
Thank
have
you
a
very much.
wonderful
Have a great
Thanksgiving.
holiday, everybody.